Today we are making major big time man food, pork chops smothered in a cream of mushroom gravy. Now, this recipe calls for pork chops, but I could not find the thickness of the pork chops I was looking for at the grocery store. So I wanted to show you a little workaround just in case this happens to you too. This, my friends, is a pork loin roast. And basically what that means is it's a gigantic slab of pork loin chops. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna cut this pork loin roast into pork chops. Now the reason that the thickness of your pork chops matters is because a thicker pork chop is gonna take longer to cook through and a thinner pork chop is going to take much less time to cook through. So in order to be able to stick to the recipe, you really want your pork chops to be about 3/4 to 1 inch thick. You wanna get your biggest, baddest, sharpest knife and you're just gonna start making your cuts as smooth as you can. If you can find pork chops that are the right thickness, you can just get right to business. Time to add some flavor to these chops. To do that, we're gonna whip up a really simple spice blend. 1.5 teaspoon of kosher salt, 1 teaspoon of garlic powder, and 1/2 teaspoon of black pepper. Mix this up. To prep the pork chops for seasoning, we're gonna give them a nice little pat dry with some paper towels. This is just removing the excess moisture. You can't get a good sear on meat if it's super wet on the outside. Now we're gonna give them a quick drizzle with about a tablespoon of oil and rub that in on both sides. Come in with your spice mix, sprinkle that right over the top, rub, flip, and repeat. Now it's time to do a little cooking. I've got a large skillet over medium-high heat. I'm gonna add in about 2 tablespoons of oil, and now I'm going to drop in my pork chops. I'm gonna move these around just real quick so that they're not touching. Everybody needs their own space. And we're gonna let this sear for about 2.5 minutes. The purpose of the sear is to really lock in flavor and keep that seasoning in place. While these pork chops are cooking, we're gonna go ahead and dice into the onion. Just turn them over. And we're gonna let them sear for another 2 minutes more. The pork chops are done for now on the stovetop. I'm just gonna remove them from the pan. These are looking absolutely amazing, super hearty already, and we're not even halfway there. The husbands are going to adore you for this dinner. Crank the heat down to medium-low. You're gonna add 3 tablespoons of butter. And we're gonna stir this around. Don't let your butter brown too much. You wanna have those onions ready to go and add right in that chopped yellow onion. And at the same time, you're gonna add in 8 ounces of sliced button mushrooms. This is the beginning of your homemade cream of mushroom gravy. No cans, no condensed anything, totally from scratch. And you're gonna see just how easy it is to make. And soon you'll taste just how much better it is. You're gonna reduce the heat to medium and you're gonna let this cook for about 6 minutes or so, just until the mushrooms are tender and those onions have totally softened. The mushrooms and the onions have softened and you can tell just from the looks of it that this mix has picked up on so much flavor. It just screams savory in this pan. We're gonna start the gravy with a little bit of flour, 1/3 cup all-purpose flour going down. Give it a stir until everything looks evenly coated. Now you're gonna start adding in 2 cups of unsalted or low sodium chicken broth, 1 big splash at a time. Add a splash, stir it around. Once it's evenly mixed in, we're gonna add another big splash. Stir again. This little technique of adding the chicken broth just one splash at a time and taking a second to stir until everything's looking smooth and evenly incorporated is how you make an incredibly smooth and creamy gravy that always turns out perfect every single time. Now you're gonna add in a little decadence, 1/3 of a cup of heavy whipping cream, some umami flavor with 2 teaspoons of soy sauce, about a 1/2 teaspoon of kosher salt, and a generous pinch of black pepper. Give it another stir, and it's really starting to look like cream of mushroom gravy. We're still at medium heat, starting to see a simmer. As soon as you see that simmer, you can go ahead and add your pork chops back to the mix. Now what we wanna do is decrease the heat to a medium low and let these pork chops sort of braise in this cream of mushroom gravy to finish cooking through. This is gonna take about 10 minutes. We're gonna take the temperature of the chops, make sure they're somewhere in the 150 range. Once your chops are cooked through, you can kill the heat. I'm gonna garnish with a little bit of parsley. Let's give it a taste. Pork chop down. Don't forget to add extra sauce. Oh my word. Let's dig in. Gotta get a mushroom or 2. The pork is just right. Those mushrooms could not be more delicious, and that creamy gravy, it's the ultimate comfort food dinner. If you're looking for more spruced up pork recipes, be sure that you check out my pork chops topped off with caramelized apples and bacon next.